I was doing my morning workout on the marble terrace of my villa when I saw it. A tiny glint of metal hidden between the olive branches, barely visible unless you knew exactly where to look. My heart stopped. Someone had been watching me. For weeks, maybe months. I am Alexandros Dimitrios Kavanaugh, and this is the story of how a stranger's obsession with me turned into the greatest love of my life. But not before it nearly destroyed everything I thought I knew about trust, family, and forgiveness. The morning light was painting the Aegean. See, in shades of gold and turquoise as I pulled that small camera from its hiding spot. My hands were shaking. The device was warm, still recording. Someone had been here recently. Very recently. I could smell a faint trace of perfume lingering in the air. Something floral and foreign that didn't belong in my private sanctuary. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you? That prickly sensation on the back of your neck that makes you turn around, expecting to see eyes on you. I'd been feeling that for weeks, but I convinced myself it was just the stress of running. My family's hotel empire since my father's death 6 months ago. "Kyrie Alexandros, your breakfast is ready," Elena called from the kitchen. Elena Calliope Vasquez had been our family's housekeeper for 20 years. She was more than staff, she was family, the closest thing to a mother I had since mine passed. When I was 12, her Spanish accent mixed beautifully with her adopted Greek phrases, creating a unique melody that had comforted me through every major moment of my life. "Elena, come here quickly," I called, my voice tighter than I intended. She appeared on the terrace within seconds, her weathered hands still dusted with flour from making my favorite honey pastries. "What is it, mi niña?" she asked, concerned. Immediately creasing her features, I held up the camera. "Someone's been filming me." Elena's face went pale, her hand instinctively reaching for the evil eye pendant she always wore. "Dios mío, how long has this been there?" "I don't know. Could be weeks. Elena, I need you to check the entire property. Look for anything that seems out of place, any small devices, anything." My mind was racing. Who would do this and why? As Elena hurried off to search the grounds, I connected the camera to my laptop. What I saw made my blood run cold. Hours upon hours of footage, me swimming in my pool at sunrise, me reading on the terrace in the evenings, me talking on the phone with business partners, me in moments I thought were completely private. The most recent videos were time-stamped just days ago. Someone had been maintaining this equipment, updating it, getting closer to my life than anyone should ever be allowed. I called my best friend, Dimitri, immediately. Dimitri Orestes Papadakis owned the most popular taverna in Anomera, and more importantly, he knew everyone on the island. If there was a stranger lurking around, he would know. "Alexandros Tikanis, brother?" His warm voice filled my ear. "Dimitri, I need your help. Someone's been spying on me, filming me at the villa." There was a pause. "Filming you? Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Professional equipment, hidden cameras. This isn't some tourist being nosy. This is organized, deliberate. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Don't touch anything else." As I waited for Dimitri, I couldn't stop staring at the footage. The person behind this camera knew my routines better than I did. They knew I swam every morning at exactly 6:30. They knew I took my calls on the eastern terrace because the connection was better there. They knew I liked to read Neruda's poetry in the evenings while watching the sunset. How long had they been studying me? Elena returned with troubling news. "I found 2 more devices, one by the pool house and another near your bedroom window." "Alexandros, this person, they've seen everything, everything." The word hit me like a physical blow. My private moments, my conversations with family and friends, my vulnerable moments when I thought no one was watching. I felt violated in a way I'd never experienced. If you've ever had your privacy completely stripped away, you know that feeling of being exposed, raw, like your skin has been peeled off layer by layer. Dimitri arrived with his characteristic urgency, his dark hair wild from the motorcycle ride. He examined the cameras with the intensity of a detective. "These are expensive, professional grade. Not something a casual stalker would use. This is someone with resources, someone who knows what they're doing." "But who?" I asked. "Who would want to film me? I'm not a celebrity, I'm not political. I just run hotels. Your family hotels, Alexandros? You're one of the wealthiest men in the Cyclades. Maybe it's industrial espionage or someone looking for blackmail material. The thought made me sick. Check the memory cards, see how far back. What we discovered was even more disturbing. The footage went back 8 weeks. 8 weeks of my life, cataloged and stored by a stranger. But as we scrolled through the files, something else became apparent. The camera angles weren't random. They were artistic, carefully composed. Some of the shots were almost beautiful, capturing moments when I thought I was alone but somehow looked peaceful, contemplative. This wasn't just surveillance. This was someone who saw me as more than a target. Look at this, Dmitri pointed to a folder labeled with dates and times. They've organized everything. This is obsessive behavior. My phone rang. It was Yasmin, my assistant. Yasmin Theodora Reyes was 24, efficient beyond her years, and had an uncanny ability to anticipate problems before they happened. Today, she was calling with news that made everything worse. Alexandros, we have a problem. Someone leaked photos of you online. They're everywhere, social media, gossip sites. The photos are intimate, taken without your knowledge. I felt the world spinning around me. What kind of photos? You swimming, you on private calls, you in your bedroom. The quality suggests they were taken with professional equipment. This was escalating beyond simple stalking. Someone was trying to humiliate me, to invade not just my privacy but my public image. Yasmin, get our legal team involved immediately. I want these photos removed from every platform. Already working on it, but Alexandros, there's something else. The photos were posted by an account with the name lost_heritage_doc. It looks like it might be connected to some kind of documentary project. Documentary. The word sparked something in my memory. 3 months ago, I'd received inquiries from several documentary filmmakers interested in our family's history, particularly the expansion of our hotel chain in the 1990s. I'd declined all interviews. Could one of them have decided to proceed without permission? Yasmin, I need you to research that account name. Find out everything you can about who's behind it. After hanging up, I sat in my study, surrounded by family photos and the scent of old leather books. The villa had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it with stones from the ancient ruins scattered across Mykonos, creating a home that felt connected to the island's history. Now that sanctuary felt violated. Contaminated by unwelcome eyes, Elena brought me coffee and her special honey cakes, but I couldn't eat. Elena, I need to ask you something. In the past few months, have you noticed any strangers around the village? Anyone asking questions about me or the family? She sat down across from me, her expression thoughtful. There was a young woman, American I think, but with Greek features. She's been staying at the small pension near the church for about 2 months. Maria, who runs the pension, mentioned she seemed very interested in local history. What did she look like? Beautiful like a classical statue, dark hair, green eyes. She speaks some Greek, but with an accent. She's been asking people about the old families on the island, particularly families involved in the tourism industry. My pulse quickened. Did Maria say what her name was? Penelope something? She told Maria she was researching her family's connection to the island. Penelope. The name felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. Elena, I want you to be extra careful for the next few days. Lock all the doors, and if you see this woman or anyone suspicious, call me immediately. That afternoon, I decided to take action. Instead of hiding in my villa, I would go to the village and see if I could find this mysterious Penelope. If she wanted to know about my family so badly, perhaps it was time we met face to face. The village of Anomera drowsed in the afternoon heat. The monastery bells chimed 3 o'clock. As I walked through the small square, past the tavernas where old men played backgammon under the shade of plane trees, the air smelled of grilling meat, wild herbs, and that distinctive scent of sun-warmed stone that defined Greek summers. I'd grown up here, spent every summer of my childhood running through these narrow streets, but today everything felt different. Tainted by the knowledge that I was being watched, I found the pension Elena had mentioned. A simple white building with blue shutters and geraniums spilling from window boxes. Maria Kostakis, the owner, was watering her plants when I approached. "Alexandros, what brings you to my humble establishment?" Maria had known me since I was a child, and her face always lit up when she saw me. "Maria, Elena mentioned you have an American guest, a woman named Penelope. I was wondering if I could speak with her." Maria's expression became guarded. She's not here right now. She spends most of her days exploring the island with her camera equipment. Very dedicated to her research, that one. Camera equipment. My heart rate spiked. What kind of research is she doing? Something about families who were affected by the tourism development in the 90s. She's particularly interested in stories that weren't told in the official histories. Stories that weren't told. A chill ran down my spine despite the heat. "Maria, do you know when she'll be back?" "Usually around sunset. She likes to photograph." "The golden hour," she says. I thanked Maria and walked back toward my villa, my mind churning. This woman wasn't just filming me randomly. She was researching my family's history, looking for untold stories. What could she possibly want to know? That wasn't already public record? Back at the villa, I called my uncle Stavros. Stavros Nikephoros Kavanaugh was my father's younger brother and the operational manager of our hotel chain. If there were any family secrets or controversies from the 90s expansion, he would know. "Stavros, I need to ask you about something." "Sensitive." "The hotel expansion in the mid-90s, were there any problems? Any families who were displaced or harmed?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Why are you asking about that now, Alexandros?" "Someone's been filming me, researching our family. They seem particularly interested in stories from that period that weren't publicized." Another pause. "Alexandros, your father made me promise never to discuss this, but if someone is digging into it now." "There was an incident. A family that lost their home due to a construction accident at one of our hotel sites. Your father settled quietly, but the family, they lost more than just property." "What do you mean?" "Two people died in the accident. A couple with a young daughter. The girl survived but lost her parents. She was around 8 or 9 years old. Your father felt responsible even though it was ruled an accident. He set up a trust fund for her education and care, but she disappeared. From our records when she turned 18, my blood ran cold." "What was the family's name?" "Kostas. The parents were Nikos and Ariadne Kostas. The daughter was named Penelope. The phone slipped from my hand. Penelope Kostas. The woman who had been filming me, studying me, documenting my private life, was the daughter of the couple who died in an accident at one of our construction sites. This wasn't random stalking or industrial espionage. This was personal. This was about justice or revenge or both. I spent the rest of the afternoon researching everything I could find about the Kostas family accident. The newspaper reports from 1999 were brief and clinical. A section of scaffolding had collapsed at the construction site of what would become the Kavanaugh Resort Mykonos. 2 workers, Nikos and Ariadne Kostas, were killed instantly. Their 9-year-old daughter, Penelope, was at school when it happened. The investigation ruled it an equipment failure, not negligence, but my father had settled with the family anyway. Now, 26 years later, that little girl had grown up and come back to confront the family she held responsible for destroying her world. The weight of understanding settled on my shoulders like a lead blanket. Every moment she had filmed, every private second she had captured, was her way of studying the enemy. But what was her endgame? Public humiliation? Legal action? Or something worse as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would have been beautiful under any other circumstances? I made a decision. I would wait for her at the pension. Whatever she wanted, whatever justice she was seeking, I owed it to her to face it directly. I positioned myself at a cafe across from the pension, ordering a frap I didn't want and pretending to read a newspaper while watching the entrance. The village was settling into its evening rhythm. Families were gathering for dinner, children were playing in the square, and the air was filled with the sounds of life continuing as it had for generations. But for me, everything felt suspended, waiting for the moment when past and present would collide. She appeared just as the monastery bells chimed 7 o'clock. Even from across the square, I could see why Elena had described her as beautiful like a classical statue. Penelope Costas moved with a grace that seemed both confident and haunted, carrying a professional camera bag and wearing clothes that spoke of money and education. Her dark hair caught the last rays of sunlight, and even at a distance, there was something magnetic about her presence. I watched as she entered the pension, probably to deposit her equipment and freshen up. This was my chance. I could confront her now, in public, where there would be witnesses and she couldn't disappear again. But as I stood up to cross the square, my phone rang. It was Dimitri. "Alexandros, where are you?" Elena called. "She found something else at the villa, something you need to see." "I can't come back right now. I found her, Dimitri. The woman who's been filming me." "You found her? Where?" "At the pension in the village. Her name is Penelope Costas. She's the daughter of the couple who died at our construction site in 1999. Jesus Christ, Alexandros, this is bigger than we thought. You can't confront her alone. I have to. This is about my family's responsibility for what happened to hers. At least wait for me, I'm coming to the village." But I was already walking across the square. Something about seeing her in person had crystallized my resolve. This woman had lost her parents because of my family's business. She had grown up, an orphan, and now she was seeking some form of justice or closure. The least I could do was listen to what she had to say. I knocked on the door of the pension. Maria answered, looking surprised to see me again so soon. "Alexandros, what can I do for you?" "I'd like to speak with Penelope Costas, please." Maria's eyes widened. "How do you know her full name?" "It's complicated." "Could you tell her that, Alexandros?" "Kavanaugh would like a word." A few minutes later, Penelope appeared in the doorway. Up close, she was even more striking than I had expected, but it was her eyes that caught me off guard. They weren't filled with the hatred I had anticipated. Instead, they held a complex mixture of sadness, determination, and something that looked almost like recognition. "So you figured it out," she said quietly. Her voice had a slight American accent, but underneath it, I could hear the rhythm of Greek that suggested she had spoken the language in childhood. "Yes, your parents were Nikos and Ariadne Kostas?" She nodded, stepping outside and closing the door behind her. "I've been waiting for this conversation for 3 months." 3 months? When I first arrived on Mykonos, I spent the first month just walking around the island, trying to understand how my parents' death had been transformed into your family's prosperity. Her words stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Can we walk? Somewhere more private?" She studied my face for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether I was safe to be alone with. Finally, she nodded. "There's a path to the lighthouse. It's quiet there." As we walked through the village and onto the coastal path, the awkwardness between us was palpable. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you know the other person has every right to hate you, but you're not entirely sure what you've done wrong? That's exactly how I felt walking beside this woman who had been watching my life through a camera lens for weeks. "Why the cameras?" I finally asked as we reached a stretch of path overlooking the sea. "Initially, documentation. I'm a filmmaker, and I came here to make a documentary about families like mine. Families whose lives were destroyed by the rapid tourism development of the 90s. Your family's story was going to be the centerpiece. And now?" She stopped walking and turned to face me. In the fading light, her green eyes seemed almost luminous. "Now I'm not sure what I'm doing anymore. What changed?" "You did." She said it so quietly I almost missed it over the sound of waves against the rocks below. "When I started filming you, you were just a symbol to me. The rich heir who inherited wealth built on other people's suffering. But watching you live, seeing how you interact with Elena, how you care for the people around you, how you carry yourself when you think no one is watching. You're not what I expected." I felt something shift in my chest, a loosening of the fear and anger I'd been carrying all day. "What did you expect? A monster? Someone callous and entitled?" Someone who deserved whatever justice I thought I was seeking, and instead I found someone who reads poetry at sunset and calls his housekeeper Elenamo like she's family. Someone who donates anonymously to the island school every year and visits the elderly at the monastery every Sunday. Someone who ... double quotes, she trailed off, looking embarrassed. Someone who what? Someone who made me question everything I thought I knew about right and wrong. We had reached the lighthouse, its beam beginning its nightly rotation across the dark water. The air was cooler here, carrying the salt spray and the wild scent of oregano and thyme that grew on the coastal rocks. In the distance, I could see the lights of other islands twinkling like stars. Penelope, tell me about your parents. She was quiet for so long, I thought she might not answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. They were everything to me. My father was a stone mason, an artist really. He could make marble sing. My mother taught traditional Greek dance to tourists. They were so proud when they got hired to work on the hotel project. It was going to be their big break, a chance to save money for my education and maybe even buy a small house. What happened after they died? I was sent to America to live with my mother's sister. She was kind, but I never felt like I belonged there. I studied film in college, partly because I wanted to tell stories like my parents. Stories of working people whose lives matter even if they're not rich or famous. When I turned 25 last year, I decided it was time to come back and understand what really happened here. So you've been planning this documentary for a year? Longer? At the filming of you, that was supposed to be just background footage, establishing shots of the family that benefited from the development. I never meant to what? To watch you for so long. To get to know you without you knowing me. To start caring about you. The admission hung in the air between us like a bridge I wasn't sure either of us was ready to cross. Caring about me? Do you want to know the real reason I kept filming you, even after I had enough footage for my documentary? It's because watching you became the best part of my day. Seeing you swim in the morning, seeing you laugh with Dimitri, seeing you be gentle with Elena. You were like a character in a story I couldn't stop reading. I felt my breath catch, Penelope. I know how wrong it was. I know I violated your privacy in the most fundamental way. I know you have every right to hate me and call the police and ruin my life the way I thought your family had ruined mine. Is that what you want? For me to ruin your life? She laughed, but it was a sound without humor. I don't know what I want anymore. I came here for justice, but I don't even know what justice would look like. My parents are gone. No amount of money or revenge will bring them back. And you you weren't even involved in what happened. You were 13 years old when they died. But I inherited the wealth that came from their deaths. Yes, but you also inherited the responsibility. And from what I've observed, you take that responsibility seriously. We sat on a low stone wall that marked the edge of the lighthouse property. The beam swept over us every 30 seconds, illuminating her profile in stark white light. I found myself studying her face, trying to reconcile the woman sitting beside me with the faceless threat I had imagined all day. What was in the trust? Fund my father set up for you? Enough to pay for my entire education and living expenses until I was 21. When I graduated college, there was still money left over. I used it to buy my camera equipment and fund this documentary project. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. She had used my father's guilt money to fund her investigation into my family. So in a way, we paid for you to spy on us. That's exactly what my therapist said when I told her what I was planning. You discussed this with a therapist? Doctor? Sarah Chun in Los Angeles. She specialized in trauma and grief. She warned me that seeking revenge might not bring the closure I thought it would. Was she right? Completely. The more I learned about you and your family, the more complicated everything became. Your father didn't just pay money and forget about us. He kept track of my progress through school, made sure I had everything I needed. When I was 16 and wanted to take a summer photography course that wasn't covered by the trust, somehow the money appeared. When I needed a car for college, one was provided. He was taking care of me from a distance. I felt tears forming. In my eyes, this was so like my father, to carry that guilt and responsibility quietly, to make sure this girl had everything she needed without ever asking for credit or forgiveness. I didn't know about any of that. Your Uncle Stavros handled the details, but the instructions came from your father. Make sure she has everything she needs to build a good life. That's what the trust documents say. Then why come back? Why risk everything you'd built in America? Because I needed to understand. I needed to see the place where they died, too. See the family that my therapist kept telling me wasn't really my enemy? And I needed to decide whether I could forgive or if I was going to spend the rest of my life carrying this anger. And have you decided? She turned to look at me directly. I think I decided the first time I saw you reading Neruda on your terrace. Do you know the poem you were reading that night 2 weeks ago? I thought back. Sonnet 17. I love you without. Knowing how or when or from where, I was close enough to hear you reading it aloud. And I thought, this man understands longing and loss. This man has felt alone in the world too. You've been that close to the house, closer than you know. I've been in your garden at night, just standing there, trying to understand how someone responsible for so much pain could seem so genuinely kind. The thought of her moving through my garden in the darkness should have terrified me, but instead I felt something else entirely. A strange sense of connection, as if she had been part of my life long before I knew she existed. Show me where, I said impulsively. What? Show me where you stood, what you saw. I want to understand what you were looking for. She studied my face in the lighthouse beam. Are you sure? It might feel like another violation. I'm sure. We walked back to the villa in silence, both of us lost in our own thoughts. The night. Air was warm and filled with the sound of cicadas and the distant music from tavernas in the village. As we approached my property, I felt nervous in a way I hadn't expected. This was my sanctuary, but I was about to see it through the eyes of someone who had been watching me without my knowledge. There, she pointed to a spot near the garden wall where the olive trees provided thick cover. That's where I first saw you swimming. I looked from her hiding spot to my pool. She had had a perfect view of the entire terrace, my bedroom window, the outdoor kitchen where I often ate breakfast. How long did you stay that first time? 3 hours. I couldn't make myself leave. You were so self-conscious. You moved through your space like you belonged there completely. I'd never seen anyone so comfortable in their own skin. And you filmed all of it? Not that first time. That first time I just watched? The filming started later when I realized I was coming back every night. Every night? For 6 weeks. I know every routine you have, every habit, every quirk. I know you always swim exactly 32 laps. I know you sing off-key in the shower. I know you talk to the olive trees when you're stressed about business decisions. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. You heard me talking to the trees? You have. Very one-sided conversations with the old olive tree by the kitchen window, usually about whether to expand the hotel chain or focus on sustainability initiatives. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. That tree has heard all my best business ideas. It's a good listener. We stood there in the darkness, looking at my home from her perspective. It was strange and intimate and unsettling all at once. Have you ever seen your life from the outside through someone else's eyes? It changes everything about how you understand yourself. What do you think of me those first few weeks? Honestly? I thought you were lonely. You have this beautiful home, all this wealth, people who work for you and care about you, but you spend a lot of time alone. And when you are alone, there's a sadness in your posture that the cameras caught even when I wasn't trying to film it. You think I'm sad? I think you're carrying something heavy. Grief, maybe, or responsibility you're not sure you're ready for. She was more perceptive than I was comfortable with. My father died suddenly. Heart attack at 58. One day, he was running the business, making all the decisions, carrying all the weight, and the next day it was all mine. I'm not sure I'm doing it right. From what I observed, you're doing it better than he did. What do you mean? Your father ran the hotels like a corporation. Profit margins, efficiency reports, market expansion. You run them like a family business. You know all your employees' names, you remember their children's birthdays, you make decisions based on how they'll affect the community, not just the bottom line. How could you possibly know all that from filming me? I didn't just film you. I talked to people in the village, people who work at your hotels, people who remember both your father and your grandfather. The consensus is that you're the best Kavanaugh to run the business since your grandfather founded it. I felt a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the night air. That means more to me than you know. It should. You've earned it. We walked closer to the house, and I found myself seeing familiar spaces through her eyes. The terrace where I took my morning coffee looked different when I imagined her watching from the shadows. The pool where I swam my daily laps felt less private, but also somehow less lonely. "Can I ask you something personal?" I said as we sat on the pool's edge, our feet dangling in the water. "After everything I've told you tonight, I think you've earned the right to ask me anything. Why documentary filmmaking? Was it really about telling stories like your parents, or was it about having a socially acceptable reason to investigate my family?" She was quiet for a long moment, trailing her fingers through the water. "Both, I think. I studied film because I wanted to give voice to people whose stories don't usually get told. But you're right that this particular documentary was personal from the beginning. I wanted to understand how a family could cause so much pain and then just continue being successful and happy." "Are we happy?" "I thought you were until I started really watching. Your happiness is conditional, fragile. You're happy when you're helping other people, when you're solving problems, when you're living up to what you think your father would have wanted. But when you're alone, when you think no one is watching, you look like you're carrying the weight of the world." "Maybe I am. Maybe you don't have to." The suggestion hung between us like a possibility I wasn't sure I knew how to reach for. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that watching you for all these weeks, I started to care about whether you were okay. I started to want you to be happy, really happy, not just performing happiness for other people. And I started to think that maybe if we could figure out how to trust each other, we might be able to help each other heal, even after everything my family cost you." "Your family didn't cost me anything, Alexandros. A terrible accident cost me my parents. Your father could have ignored what happened, could have fought the lawsuits and let lawyers handle everything. Instead, he took responsibility and made sure I had a future. That's not the action of a villain." I looked at her profile in the moonlight. This woman who had appended my life and then turned all my assumptions upside down. "So what happens now?" "I don't know. I came here with a plan, but meeting you has changed everything. I can't make the documentary I originally intended because it would be based on a lie. I can't pretend your family is evil when I've seen how much good you do. So no documentary? Maybe a different documentary. Maybe a story about forgiveness, about how tragedy can lead to healing instead of just more pain. But I'd want your permission." "For that, your collaboration. And the cameras? The filming without consent? Stopped completely as of tonight. I'll give you all the footage, the memory cards, everything. What you do with it is up to you." I believed her. Despite everything that had happened, despite the violation of my privacy and the deception, I believed her. Maybe it was the way she looked at me when she spoke, or the genuine remorse in her voice, or the fact that she was offering to give up the very thing she had come here to create. Or maybe it was something simpler and more complicated than that. "I have a confession," I said. "What?" "Part of me is relieved that you were the one watching me." "What do you mean?" "I mean that if someone had to be secretly observing my life, documenting my private moments, I'm glad it was someone who saw beauty in ordinary things. Someone who understood loneliness, someone who cared about whether I was really okay." She turned to face me fully, her green eyes reflecting the pool lights. "Alexandros ... I'm not saying what you did was right. It wasn't. But I'm saying that knowing it was you, knowing your reasons, knowing that you were trying to understand rather than exploit, it changes how I feel about it." "How do you feel about it?" Like, maybe we were supposed to meet, just not the way either of us expected. The silence that followed was different from the awkward quiet of earlier. This silence felt full of possibility, charged with the potential for something neither of us had planned, but both of us seemed to be considering. "Can I ask you something now?" she said. "Of course." "When you were reading Neruda that night, were you thinking about someone specific?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Because you weren't just reading the words. You were feeling them. And I wondered if there was someone you were missing, someone you were longing for." I thought about how to answer honestly. I was thinking about loneliness, about how it's possible to be surrounded by people who care about you and still feel fundamentally alone. I was thinking about whether I'd ever find someone who really understood me, who saw past the money and the family name to whoever I actually am underneath all of that. And what did you conclude? That maybe I was looking for someone impossible, someone who could see me completely and still choose to stay. What if that someone was sitting in your garden, watching you read poetry and thinking the exact same thing? My heart stopped. Penelope ... I know it's crazy. I know the circumstances are impossible. I know I have no right to feel this way after what I've done. But watching you live your life, seeing how you move through the world with such care and intention and kindness, I started falling for you before I ever spoke to you. You fell for someone you were spying on? I fell for someone I was getting to know in the most honest way possible. When people think they're alone, when they think no one is watching, that's when they're most themselves. I saw you when you thought you were invisible, and what I saw was someone I could love. The word love electrified the air between us. Neither of us moved, but I could feel the space getting smaller, the possibility getting bigger. "This is insane," I said quietly. "Completely. You violated my privacy for weeks." "Yes. You lied to me about who you were." "Yes, you used your parents' death as a reason to investigate my family." "Yes, and despite all of that, I'm sitting here wanting to kiss you. Are you? Are you surprised?" "I've been wanting you to kiss me since the night I heard you reading love poetry under the stars." I stood up and offered her my hand. She took it and I pulled her to her feet. We were standing very close now, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the same floral scent I had noticed in my garden that morning. Close enough to see the gold flecks in her green eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "If I kiss you now," I said, "everything changes?" "Everything." Already changed the moment we started telling each other the truth. "Are you sure about this?" "I've never been sure about anything the way I'm sure about this." I cupped her face in my hands, feeling the silk of her hair between my fingers. "Your parents would want me to be happy. And you make me happy, Alexandros. You make me feel like I'm home." When I kissed her, it was like something that had been broken inside me suddenly healed. Her lips were soft and warm, and she tasted like honey and possibilities. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. "What are we doing?" she whispered against my mouth. "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." "We're going to have to figure out how to make this work." "Are we?" "Unless you're planning to kiss me once and then call the police." I laughed, a sound that felt lighter than anything I'd produced in months. "No police, but we're going to have to figure out how to trust each other." "I know. And I know it won't be easy." What I did was a betrayal, even if my feelings changed. You have every right to be angry, to need time, to set boundaries. What if I don't want boundaries? What if I want to know everything about you, the way you got to know everything about me? Then we start over, properly this time. With consent. And honesty and no hidden cameras. I'd like that. Even knowing that I'm the daughter of people who died because of your family's business, especially because of that. We have a chance to heal something that's been broken for 26 years. We have a chance to turn tragedy into something beautiful. She kissed me again, and this time it felt like a promise. Like the beginning of a story we would write together instead of one person observing the other from the shadows. When we came up for air, she was smiling. "So what do we do now?" "Now we go inside, and you tell me everything about your life in America. And I tell you everything about mine here." And we figure out if two people with our complicated history can build something real together. And if we can't, then at least we'll know we tried. But Penelope? Yes, I think we can. I think we're going to surprise ourselves with how well we can love each other. As we walked toward the house, hand in hand, I felt something I hadn't experienced since my father died: hope for the future. This woman had entered my life as a threat, a violation, a ghost from my family's past. But she was leaving this night as something entirely different. She was leaving as the answer to a question I didn't even know I'd